Welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet, the financial planning podcast for parents who are senior level professionals with kids in school or college. If you're tired of stitching together 4 different specialists to run your financial life, you're in the right place. I'm Paul Fenner, certified financial planner, enrolled agent, and founder of TAMMA Capital. I also have 4 kids, including a set of triplets, so I know the pace. Let's get into today's conversation.
Hi, and welcome back. You know that moment at the end of a long day. You've been in meetings since 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. You've managed a team conflict. You've sat through a grueling budget review, and you've held together through all of it. And then you walk in the front door, and your spouse says, "We need to talk about that spending plan." And something in you just automatically shuts down. I want to read something to you from Morgan Housel that sits with me all the time. And it goes like this: save like a pessimist and invest like an optimist. Plan like a pessimist and dream like an optimist. Those can seem like conflicting skills, and they most certainly are. It's hard to realize there's a time and a place for both, and that the two can and should coexist. So that idea, holding these two opposite things at the same time, that's what I want to talk about today. But not in the way that you'd expect. Because I think there's a version of this playing out in the lives of busy parents everywhere that has nothing to do on how you allocate your portfolio or your spending plan. So I have to be honest about this, and I'm wondering if Teresa's going to listen this week. And I'm not sure I really fully understand it yet, but as I've gotten older, I'm about ready to hit a milestone birthday soon, I've gotten more experience in my work with families, and I think I've become more patient. I think that would be the ultimate question for them. Those families that sit across from me worried whether they'll be able to afford college for their 3 kids, whether they should sell everything when the market drops. And just bottom line, they just want to know, are they going to be okay? I've gotten better at sitting in that space with them, holding their fear without trying to immediately fix it and letting the conversation breathe. But here's the thing. I think I've become less patient at home with Teresa and our 4 kids. I don't fully understand why. It's like I use up all my capacity for holding complexity during the day, like most of you, and by the time I get home, I've got nothing left in the tank. Teresa will ask me sometimes about our own planning, our own finances, and I'll catch myself being short, somewhat maybe dismissive. The same conversation I just handled earlier in the day with some grace and empathy, I can barely tolerate with my own wife. And so I've been sitting with that because it's uncomfortable to admit that when you give your best self to strangers and the family, the people you care most about, they get the leftovers. And I see this pattern play out with the families I work with. And one couple that comes to mind, I'll call them the Bennetts, not the real names. She's a director of operations at a regional healthcare system. He's a senior engineer at a tier 1 auto supplier, has a team of like 40. Combined total income, household income, like $350,000. They have 2 kids under 10 that are super active. So on paper, the Bennetts are doing everything right. Contributing to their employer-sponsored 401ks. Both have some kind of deferred comp. The husband has a brokerage account from his first job that he hasn't touched in years. They have a CPA who files their return every April. And they had an advisor who was managing the brokerage account. But he never looked at the 401k, never talked to the CPA, didn't know anything about the deferred comp. So, once again, no one was holding the complete picture. And here's what made it worse. Both of these people are extremely sharp, capable people. Like I said, the wife manages a multi-million-dollar operating budget, and the husband leads a team of 40 engineers. They hold complexity for a living. They solve crises for a living. But by the time they sat down at the kitchen table at 9 o'clock after the kids went to bed, they didn't have the patience left to coordinate their own financial life. So the 401k stayed on autopilot. The brokerage account drifted, it did what it did. The CPA filed the return, but no planning was involved. And these two people who are paid to solve complex problems at work couldn't get their arms around their own situation. And not because they were incapable, they were exhausted. Like I'm sure many busy parents find themselves. But this is what I think Morgan's idea looks like in real life for dual income families. It's not about whether you should be an optimist or a pessimist with your investments or portfolio or spending. Most senior professionals I work with already have the right instincts here. They save, they contribute, they don't panic. The pessimist side handles the savings, and the optimist side keeps them investing. But here's what nobody talks about. Holding those two things together costs energy. It's a skill, and skills require fuel. And when you spend all day being the person who holds that complexity at work, who stays measured in the tense meetings, who absorbs the pressure from your boss and your team, and then comes home and tries to be present for homework and bedtime and your marriage, there's not a lot left over for the conversation about your financial picture and who's actually coordinating it. And that's where things fall apart. Not from bad decisions, from autopilot, from two competent people assuming the other one has it handled and that it can't wait until next quarter, or that the advisor is seeing the whole picture when they're only seeing a slice of the pie. Or I should say only one slice of the pie. The fear that shows up most often in the office isn't the fear that the market will crash. It's the quiet fear that no one is steering the ship. And that by the time you look up from the daily chaos, years pass and you realize no one was coordinating any of it. The days are long and the years are short. You've heard it before, busy parents. So here's what I want you to try this week. And it has, obviously, as you can imagine, nothing to do about your portfolio, your spending. It's about your patience. So pick one evening, and before you sit down to talk with your spouse or partner about anything financial, anything logistical, anything that requires you to hold complexity together, ask yourself, am I showing up with the same patience I would give my colleague? Or am I running on fumes? And if the answer is fumes, then you have to reschedule that conversation. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it matters too much to have when you're running on empty. And if you realize that you've been on autopilot, that no one is holding the complete picture of your financial life, those 401ks, your tax situation, the estate plan are all out there floating independently with no one connecting the dots, that's worth paying attention to. Not next quarter, but right now. So save like a pessimist, invest like an optimist. Both save some patience for the people sitting across the kitchen table from you. They need the best version of you, not the leftovers. And this is advice I constantly have to try to accept for my own well-being and for the sake of my own family and marriage. Money is a number, enough is a story. Let's make sure we're writing our own. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time. Now for the fine print. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not personalized financial, tax, or legal advice. Before making any decisions about your specific situation, please work with a qualified professional. TAMMA Capital is a registered investment advisor.